Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alon.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Next Man Up podcast and another episode. So happy to have you with us as we work to raise up the next generation of men of faith and character, because when boys become godly and healthy men, everyone benefits. You know this. My name is Mark Stanifer. I'm joined once again by Alana Guste, Josh Wilson. Gentlemen, as always, great to be with you.
Yes, sir. Always good to hang out with you guys.
It's great to be here with you.
So, guys, we got a question a while back from a listener to address a specific topic, and the question or the topic goes like this. He says, "I'm not a father, but I have a nephew that I have significant influence over and really care about. How do I influence him positively, even though I'm not his parent?" Now, when I got the question, I actually had a chance to dialogue with him about it a little bit deeper, and I won't go into all of that context, but this guy really he's got a love for his nephew and a desire for his nephew to grow up and to become a quality man, and sees his role in this case as an uncle as being very influential. But as I was thinking about this topic, it applies to more than just uncles. We're talking about teachers or coaches. We're talking about youth pastors, neighbors. We're talking about friends, maybe other relatives. Like there's lots of different ways where this concept of influencing boys you don't parent really applies, various different roles that it applies. And so I thought it would be good to just dialogue about the thoughts we have on this topic and how to help this listener and the other listeners that find themselves, whether they're dads or not, find themselves in the space where they have significant opportunity to influence the boys around them. So with that as the setup and the topic, what are your thoughts as we begin to move down this path?
Like my first thought is that the number one thing I think that needs to be really like tilled and worked and pressed into is relationship.
Mm.
Like a gentleman once told me, you can't make a withdrawal without a deposit.
Yep.
And so the idea that you can't really speak into this young boy's life and expect him to like take your wisdom to heart or to allow it to sink in or begin to even apply it if like he has no relationship with you, and sometimes I think like people mean well, and there's a sense like, no, this is something that I should be doing or connecting with, but we forget that without that bridge of relationship, there's no way to walk across and get in, and there's no reason why that boy should allow you in. You know what I mean? And when in the case of the person who wrote this, there's that relationship. There is that opening, a little crack. Oh, this is my uncle, and you can begin to build a relationship there. A harder one is, what if, like you said, you're a teacher, you're a coach, you're a counselor, or you're a neighbor or something, and there's connection with the family. How do you go about like doing that, building that relationship? I think we just need to find the avenues to build those bridges and to see them built. And as we do that, like, I think that's when we can see ourselves having openings to be able to influence a young person for positive and for good.
That's been my experience as well. Like, I've spent most of my life not as a parent. I'm a fairly new parent, but I've spent the last 10 years or so as an uncle. Probably most of my time has been spent getting to know my nephews and nieces. Because without that relationship, like you're talking about, Alon, you don't have any sort of platform to speak into their lives. You have to have relationship first.
Mm-hmm.
I have some nieces and nephew, I guess, as well. And just listening to you guys talk, I realized that I have a title, I have a role that I play as uncle. But because I don't see them on a regular basis for various reasons, I don't have a whole lot of meaningful influence. Now, when we get together, it's enjoyable, and I think they know that I care. But for me to just call them up out of the blue and start giving them advice would just it'd be really awkward, because I haven't done the time with them, the lifetime with them, to really establish that trust and that relationship, and for them to know that. That I mean well, number one, but to have a desire for my experience or my wisdom or whatever I might have to share, even though I've got the title of uncle, I don't fully have that relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like, I think that there has to be a show of I care, and I want to invest in you. I want to like lovingly like help you become the man that you're supposed to become, and that means that we have to take a step further. So, like, for instance, you were saying when your nephews and nieces come over for like, you guys get together for like a holiday or something like that, that's normal. That's a normal thing, right?
Yep.
Well, then the question needs to become, okay, what outside of that can I do to show? And you're right. It's like, you know, um, out of the blue kind of phone call. It's like, what? Why is my uncle creepy?
Right.
But if there was an intentional, like, hey, like, uh, I I've been thinking about you, and I just want to get to know you. Like, what do you like? What are you into? Or, oh, I heard that you have this game coming up. Can my family and I come and be a part? And that, they're like, taking little steps like that, I think, shows interest and shows care. For as a youth pastor, and even in the school now, like, I've 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 had to like figure what is the next step with each student that I connect with. Like, when I was being youth pastor, it was like, what the next step needs to be, something like outside of just our services and our small groups and our events.
Something more personal.
Yeah, something more personal. And so, like for a lot of kids, it was, in those like non-personal moments, I had to bring up, like, hey, like, dude, Chipotle, what do you think about that? And most kids were like, yeah, I love Chipotle. Hey, yo, you want to catch a bite to eat? I'd love to get to know you. You know what I'm saying? Let me call up your parents and see if that's okay. But if you feel cool, bring a friend and we can hang out at Chipotle and just chat. And you know what I mean? Like, try to figure out what that next step is. Like, in the schools, like, my next step is a walk with a student around the school building. It's like, they know me as a culture coordinator, and they may see me in the lunchroom, they may see me on a playground, or see me walking through the halls, but that's normal for them. The next step would be, hey, I want to help you like grow as a young person, and it's not just part of my job; it's a passion I have. So, would you mind, like, if I come grab you during the period, and we could take a walk down the hallway and back, and we can begin to get to know each other and see how I can be an asset for you, like, while you're here in middle school. And man, like, when kids see that someone else sees them outside of the normal setting, like, oh, you want to invest in me, you want to care and see me and value me. That's huge. And that's a great way to begin a relationship, to build with them, like, for the future.
That's been my experience as well, Lon. I think that just noticing them goes a long way to building that relationship, because I think a lot of kids just feel like they aren't seen. A lot of boys feel like most of their activities aren't noticed by adults. And so if you just notice them doing stuff and encouraging them, or commenting on it, preferably positive, and calling things out of them that you see, there's this, hey, this adult, authority figure in my life is someone who's for me that I can trust. And I think that gives you a place, because you've shown that you care, and that you see them, and that you are that you're paying attention to where they're at.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start with relationship, and all good thoughts, although somewhat intuitive, worth saying and expressing up front that this is the place to start. What else? What other thoughts as you guys think about how to help somebody in this situation? What other thoughts come to mind?
Well, I think that as like you are building this relationship, that another thing that you need to keep at the forefront of your mind is that this is not your kid. This young boy that you're connecting with, that you're building with, as a coach, as a teacher, as an uncle or whatever. At the end of the day, man, no matter how much you are invested, or how much you are loving and caring for this young man, like, it's just not your kid, and you need to honor that. We as we mentor and coach and whatever, this kid belongs to someone, and we need to honor their thoughts on this. And so whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing, it would be good to run and check it by like their parents, or parent or guardian. I think it would be good to know that maybe what you are pressing may not be like in line with that child's like guardian or parents mindset. And and what I mean by that is like, though people just might have different cultural norms than you do, and they may have different societal norms than you do, and to be aware of that would go a long way. And so saying like, hey, I'm not sure, especially with things that you're not sure about, like, it's like, I'm not sure where your guardian or where your parents are on this, or where your house is on this subject or this matter, but here's what I think, and here's what I would do. But I would also run this by your parents or your guardian to see if this is something for you, or this is a matter for you. And what that does is it allows you to share like what you want to share, but it also honors their parents and their guardian, and gives them a heads up of what you're trying to instill or invest into this young boy.
This is where it gets tricky, right? It's nuanced. It's not so easy as just being a dad or a parent. And Alon, I think you're right on. It's important to recognize that you aren't the parent in this situation. Even if you have significant influence, you're still not the parent.
Yeah. And that's hard. Especially if you think you're right.
That's right. That's right.
It's really tough, because I mean, to bite your tongue and to not go into like argument mode is hard. And sometimes like their parents or guardians might call you out on stuff, and that's what I mean. You need to be ready to answer for that, because it's not your kid. Like, and I've had countless times where I've had conversations with a parent from the school I'm at, where I had to talk, and they're like, "Well, that's not what I teach my kid, and I don't want you teaching my kid that." I'm like, "Okay, I get it." And sometimes it's like, well, this is out, like inside the four walls of the school. This is how we operate in our culture, and so I will share. I can't change that. This is just the way that we operate and how we do things. But I will share that, outside these walls, like it's it's really what your parents say goes, and some parents are cool with that, some are not. But like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say I want to honor what you're teaching and what you're instilling in your kid, and it may be different than mine, but I want to honor that and be okay with that, even if I think it's wrong.
So I think you bring up a good point, Alon. Whether you define that space that you have influence over as the four walls of the school, or maybe your own home, or the baseball diamond, or the soccer field, or wherever, there's significant influence as the leader in that space, whether it's a coach or as as a culture coordinator. You can influence the space that you have control over, and as that boy enters that space, he knows how we do things here. But you're right on. Once he leaves that space, then that's governed by the parents.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's hard, man.
It is hard.
That's really hard.
It is,
especially like when you're like, like one norm is what you do with fighting. And like that one, man, that always it seems to be the one that floats to the top. Like the one thing that parents are just like, I want my kid to go slugging it out. And we're like, well, inside these four walls, like we want to talk things through. We want to use calming methods. We want to definitely display that we're like, let people know and communicate that we're angry, but we're going to do it in a healthy way. But we can't be slugging it out. We're just not going to do that. And so and some parents will fight us on that and argue with us on that. And it's like, no, but once my baby leaves the walls though, like that's a whole different story. It's like, you're absolutely right. And we have to honor that. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm not going to say that like you're unhealthy, but I will say I will share that inside these walls, here is the way that we found to move forward in health, for the community. And that's a tough one, man. Even as I'm saying it to you, that it's like hard to wordsmith that in a way that becomes honoring, but also shares, well, in the arena that I have authority in, this is the way it goes.
Oftentimes, though, you may not even have authority. You just have influence.
Yes.
I mean, that's been my experience for the most part, is that I have very little authority, but I have influence. And the thing about influence is often you don't get control when you get influence. You have the ability to nudge, but you can't dictate, and you can't force people to do things that you tell them to do. Instead, what you could do is make really strong arguments and show really good examples for how to do life differently than their other situations.
Yes.
To make the alternative compelling and attractive.
And then make the choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is an art form that not many know how to do. But man, is it good to be like an outside influencer, and a good one. And you're right, Josh, I think being able to present arguments and to present like evidence that shows that there is a different way, and there is some counsel that maybe you could take to heart that can even push you further than you've ever thought, like in growing in your life as a man, as a human being, as being a solid human being and healthy human being. Like if you could do that, you're on point. and you can see a lot of people's lives like change because of that.
I think using your influence to change a boy's mind about how to do life is actually going to set them up for success in the future as well. Because as an adult, you often don't have power. You have influence. And the stronger the case you can make from a position of influence, the stronger your position will be if you have a position of power. If all you do is like force people to do stuff, people will end up not listening to you. But if you can influence them without having to use the power of your position, you will end up getting more done and more accomplished. And so by using influence to change the mind of boys that are kind of like in your sphere of influence, they're probably going to have better tools to use influence in the future to change other people's minds.
Josh, although dads have authority, I think what you just said is on point for dads as well with their own sons. You know, just using the power of influence is much more significant, much more meaningful, dare I say, much more influential than just using the position of authority or title that you have. I think it applies across the spectrum.
Not to get too Christianese, but I feel like that's how Jesus did most of his ministry, was not by exercising his position as the Messiah. Actually, he tried not to make that super apparent that he was the Messiah until after the fact. He influenced people. And it seems like that's the way God tends to operate throughout Scripture. And it's only as a last resort that he uses his power or authority.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's good. You're right.
Agreed.
So we've covered a couple of thoughts, guys. Anything else that bubbles up as you're thinking about how to help someone in this situation?
Yeah, I would say that understand that the idea is to influence and in a positive way this young person to grow up to be the man that they're supposed to be, and a good, strong, healthy man. And so knowing that one day that boy is going to be a man and someday stand next to you in the community of men, then you're going to have to like grow as that relationship changes over the course of time then, so because your relationship will change. It will change from like that instructor coach to this is a fellow man now who I need to respect his choices and decisions, and I need to be more of a friend, counselor, kind of a person in their lives, and not just someone they look up to, because they're not boys anymore, And so understanding that, I think it's important to flow with the change in relationship, and to honor that, because that boy someday will be his own man, and we need to be ready for that when it comes.
It also makes me think that there are seasons where we can journey with these boys, and then they may move on, and we may lose connection, we may lose touch, we may not be in relationship with them anymore as the season changes. Yeah. So even recognizing that, just being aware that as they're transitioning in whatever life circumstance they're going through, it may mean that the relationship has to transition as well. And as an influencer and not a parent, it may be that you just have to let it go or try to engage in a different way. But I'm just thinking, the scenario you described was a very long-term scenario. What about that very short-term scenario where you recognize that, hey, I have opportunity for this season, and so I maximize it, but recognize that it's just for a season.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess to me, like it goes back to it's not your kid,
Yeah,
kind of deal. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hate to throw that out because it makes it feel like, you're stripping away a piece of humanity like out of the picture. But it's the truth. Like, I was a youth pastor for 10 years. To say that like all those kids now who are young adults and adults are, they got families of their own, that I'm still connected, that would be a lie. You know what I mean? And so for the time that I had, I want to do my part, and I want to do my job. And yes, relationships do, some continue, but understand that they're going to move on with their lives. And I got to be okay with that. But I guess the real thing is am I imparting, am I taking advantage of all the time that I have with them, and pouring what I need to? And can I be okay with them walking out the door, know?
Yeah.
Because it happens.
Yeah, I feel like that in order to do this well in whatever role, you've got to be willing to hold it loosely, and in some cases be willing to have your heart ripped out your chest.
Yeah.
And certainly there will be positive examples too and success stories, but there will be that one that just doesn't go well or doesn't go the way you'd hoped, and yet it's still worth doing, because even in that season, the opportunity, however long you have, there's that opportunity to speak life into that person, into that boy, and show him what it looks like to be a healthy and godly man, and invite him along wherever he is in the journey. Invite him to just move closer to that target, and be there to help if and when needed. But it's messy because it's a relationship, and if we wanted to be pain free, we wouldn't be in relationship with people.
No doubt about it.
Agreed. Agreed. Just piggybacking off what Josh said, I don't want to get too Christianese. I like that. That phrase you used, Josh. That was funny. But like Jesus was talking about this parable of a sower, and the idea was that this sower, or this person who like puts seed out, this sower was throwing seed like everywhere. And some, it says, fell on rocky soil, shallow soil, all kinds of different, and of course, in some really rich, good soil. The thing that draws my attention was that, like, this sower was really generous with his seed. Like, he was generous with it enough to say that even if it fell in places where it wouldn't even grow well, that's okay, because I want to give an opportunity for my seed to grow wherever. And just thinking about what you just said, like, Mark, like, I think there is a harsh reality of like, yeah, man, this thing might not work out, or this kid that I'm pouring into may just decide one day just not to even take anything I have, and might just throw it away. Or, this relationship that I have may end. And I won't even know what my investment inside of a young person looks like. But that's okay, though. I think it's important to be generous and to understand that we are continually pushing to flourish like humankind, and to see the world be better, and to pass on things that have helped us, like, in life. And so don't hold back because of fear of that, or anxiety of that, or whatever. I say invest wherever, and love whoever, and pour into whoever, to see that young boy become a man and better the world.
Yeah, Alon, I agree that we have to be willing to give without expecting to see the end result. And I think our goal is to welcome these boys into the community of men. And part of what that means is that they get to go their own way. We're trying to launch them as best as we can, even though they aren't necessarily our boys. We want to launch them because we need more men.
It's always cool when something like what I'm about to share like happens, and it does. It does. It may not be every story, but it does. Like I was in an airport. I think it was like Atlanta, and I was transferring from one flight to the next, and I'm walking through the airport, and all of a sudden, like two people approach me, and I had you got to understand, I had to look up. I don't know you. And I'm not quite sure what you are doing, but they're approaching me, and all of a sudden, like these two start saying, "You don't remember us, do you?" And like we were in your youth group, like way back in early 2000, and like here's what's going on in our lives, and like we just want to say thank you. You really like meant a lot to us, and the things that you shared and the life experience and what you did for like our fellow peers like in us were like just really cool. Just thank you. And then they walk away. I sat there in the airport like holding my bag going, wow, like what a cool moment. Like I did not expect that when I woke up, but something I said or things that I did years ago have found their way like into someone's heart, and it's helped them grow into the person that there's people that they're supposed to be. And just by chance, in a moment in the airport, a place I never thought that would happen, I was able to see it. You know what I'm saying? And friends, like if you're out there and you're pouring into people's hearts, and let's say maybe even now as we're talking, of someone that even fits that bill of you don't even know where that person is in your life. Like I would just be like aware that they may come back and say thank you. Maybe not all the times, but you might just find yourself like at some parking lot of McDonald's, or you might find yourself going to a movie theater or walking through the mall or at a game, and someone just taps you on the shoulder and lets you know how much of an impact your investment made like into their lives. And that's not the reason we do it, but it sure does feel good to see that and be aware of that. It's awesome.
There's the generous seed that fell on the rich soil, and what a gift to you to have an opportunity to see that years down the road.
Yeah,
that's cool. Thanks for sharing.
That's good stuff.
Well, listeners, I don't know where you are in this type of topic or what influence you have over non-children in your life, but hopefully this has been encouraging, enlightening, challenging to you. I'm not sure what you're taking away from this, but if there's opportunity for you to pour into the boys around you and to scatter truth and wisdom and healthy and godly manhood generously around, then may this be an encouragement to do so. And may it also be an invitation for additional questions or ideas or topics that you would like us to tee up here. As this listener did, feel free to hit us up. Our email is feedback@thenextmanup.com, or you can find us on Facebook at NMU Journey. If you got suggestions for topics for us to tackle, we would love to hear it and be able to interact with you that way. All right, Alon, always a pleasure. Thank you for your wisdom. Josh, same. Thank you for your wisdom, your experience. I know our listeners are better off for what you guys bring to the table here. And as always, it is time to wish our listeners well. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.